News.
In today's top stories, Algeria has strongly condemned the Zionist attacks in the Qatari capital, calling for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council to examine the situation in the Middle East. In Algeria, the fourth edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, which is to wind up at the exhibition hall Safex in Algiers, was marked by the signing of several agreements. And as 200 protesters were arrested in France, hundreds of sporadic actions and incidents broke out today following a call on social media to block the country in a mobilization called Bloc en Tout against the 2026 budget proposal. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamel Slimani. Algeria, in coordination with Qatar, has called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council to examine the situation in the Middle East following the Zionist attacks in the Qatari capital. Algeria strongly condemned the heinous Zionist aggression that targeted the Qatari capital Doha, expressing its full and complete solidarity with the brotherly state of Qatar in its exceptional situation it is going through. According to a statement by the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the national community abroad and African affairs, the Israeli occupation's widened aggression and targeting of negotiators show it rejects peace and disregards global values. The statement urged the international community to act urgently to stop the occupation's crimes against Palestinians and prevent further regional instability. The Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman said that despite ongoing U.S. requested negotiations in Doha, Israel deliberately sabotaged peace efforts, proving it is the aggressor in the region, stressing that history will record this incident and urged the international community to uphold international law and act against violations of sovereignty.
نحن في هذه الأيام الأخيرة كانت المفاوضات.
These past days, in the recent days, negotiations had been ongoing, moving forward at full speed at the request of the American side to discuss the latest proposal received from them. Despite this, and with the knowledge of the Israeli side, which had been continuously sending its delegations to Doha, it worked to sabotage every attempt to create opportunities for peace. Does the world need a clearer message than that? Who is closing the door to peace? Does the international community need more proof of who the bully in the region is? History will record this incident, and international laws and norms must take such an incident into account, because acting to violate the sovereignty of states with reckless disregard must not be overlooked, and all measures must be taken against it.
He added that Qatar will not tolerate violations of its sovereignty, will respond firmly to any aggression, and reserves the right to take all necessary measures. For his part, Hamas representative in Algeria, Youssef Hamdan, said the aggression shows the Zionist occupation's intent to undermine peace efforts, with Netanyahu seeking to erase Palestinian rights and drag the region into wider conflict to remain in power.
هذا العدوان يكشف مجددا هذه الطبيعة الإجرامية للاحتلال.
This aggression once again exposes the criminal nature of the occupation and its desire to undermine any chances of reaching an agreement. The targeting of the negotiating delegation by Israeli aggression on Qatari territory confirms these intentions, through which Benjamin Netanyahu seeks to undermine all efforts and thwart any proposal, whether it was presented by U.S. President Donald Trump or others. They do not want to reach any agreement and are deliberately working to abort all opportunities and foil international efforts. Netanyahu is certainly trying to erase our cause and the rights of our people, but he is also trying to drag the region into a wider circle of flames in order to keep himself in power.
For his part, the U.S. President Donald Trump expressed strong disapproval of the Zionist strike in Doha, stating that he was not thrilled and very unhappy with how the attack unfolded. The White House described the strike as unfortunate. Let's recall that Gaza and the border Palestinian territories are enduring a catastrophic humanitarian crisis, with the occupying Israeli forces ordering the evacuation of the Gaza city. Panic has spread among a population already displaced by weeks of bombardment. moment. This crisis is compounded by a crippling famine and severe food insecurity, which have pushed the situation to the brink. International voices are growing louder, calling for accountability and sanctions against the Israeli occupier. Yet, despite these appeals, relentless airstrikes continue to devastate hospitals, homes, and vital infrastructure, leaving survivors to navigate a landscape of destruction, displacement, and despair. Now, hundreds of sporadic actions and incidents broke out today, Wednesday morning, following a call on social media to block France in a mobilization called Bloquons Tout, Let's Block Everything, against the 2026 budget proposal. The details with Masoud Sharfi.
Born on social media over the summer, the Bloquons Tout movement denounces the budgetary measures planned by François Bayrou's outgoing government, in particular the abolition of public holidays and cuts to pensions and public services. The organizers, who have no declared trade union or party affiliation, are calling for civil disobedience and the occupation of symbolic locations. According to local media, around 50 blockades have been reported, particularly on ring roads, major roads, and tram and bus depots. According to figures released by the authorities, law enforcement officers have so far made nearly 200 arrests across France as part of blockade removal operations. Meanwhile, French Minister of the Armed Forces Sébastien Lecornu has been appointed Prime Minister. French President Emmanuel Macron has initially tasked him with consulting the parties with a view to building the agreements essential to the decisions of the coming months before forming a new government. This appointment comes after the resignation of François Bayrou following the loss of a vote of confidence in the National Assembly. On Monday, Mr. Bayrou presented a new general policy statement focusing on the budgetary emergency and efforts to reduce the public deficit before facing the votes of the deputies. Only 194 of them decided to place their confidence in him, compared with 364 who refused.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Now back to Algeria, which is hosting the main economic event on the African continent, the 2025 Intra-African Trade Fair, starting with the El Jaish magazine, which has stressed that Algeria will continue to make great efforts to unify the voice of Africans and make it heard in various international forums. Under the headline, "For a Safe, Stable and Prosperous Continent," the editorial in El Jaish magazine stated that through its economic weight and development momentum, Algeria continues to consolidate its position as a key player in the African development and integration process by hosting the 4th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair this month. More with Masoud Sharfi again.
According to the magazine, this important event reflects the country's commitment and tireless efforts to strengthen intra-African trade within the framework of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which will have a positive impact on the economic and social development of the countries and peoples of the continent. It stated that in this regard, Algeria will be able, according to many economic experts, to contribute effectively to accelerating the pace of trade and economic integration on the continent, thanks to its economic potential and competitive strengths, in addition to its strategic location, which qualifies it to play a pivotal economic role that will cement its position as an emerging economic power and an important player in Africa's development. Algeria, which in the past supported many African countries in their struggle for liberation from the colonial rule, and which today continues to constantly support just causes, foremost among them the question of Western Sahara, continues to exert its influential presence in all mechanisms of joint African action, at the publication reaffirming that it is and will remain an active player and an integral part of the collective effort to address the challenges of economic development, continental integration, and the achievement of the ambitious vision outlined by the African Union. This vision was highlighted by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, when he addressed African leaders and officials participating in the 4th edition of the IITF 2025, inviting inviting them to make it a new beginning and a fresh era in which we join hands to move forward with confidence towards a strong, united and prosperous Africa. The review highlights that Algeria, based on its convictions that security and development are closely intertwined, in making considerable efforts and playing a pivotal role in consolidating security and stability on the continent by contributing to the continent's various joint operational framework for cooperation in the fight against terrorism.
The fourth edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair continued today at the exhibition hall Safex in Algiers on its seventh and final day, marked by several economic activities and the official closing ceremony. Joining us live from Safex is our reporter Mohammed Khatel. Mohammed, what's the latest on this last day of the IATF 2025?
Hello, Jamal, and hello, dear listeners. The fourth edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, IATF 2025, hosted by Algeria, is winding up today after 7 days of intense activities ranging from exhibitions, conferences, panel discussions, master classes, and artistic shows, in addition to the signing of several agreements and memoranda of understanding worth millions of dollars between the various participating companies and groups. Today, we saw the signing of partnership agreements between the Algerian mining group Sonarem and a number of African groups, among other contracts. The final day, Jamal, of IATF 2025 was also marked by an award ceremony for the best startups in Africa to encourage youth in engaging in their own business in Africa and set up their companies based on innovative and creative ideas. The final press conference of IATF 2025 is taking place shortly in the presence of many Algerian and African personalities and high-ranking government officials. IATF 2025, which put Algeria at the heart of intra-African trade, was hailed by the participants, visitors, and organizers alike as a sweeping success, thanks to the relentless efforts deployed by Algeria and its people. From Safex Exhibition International Center, Mohammed Khatel reporting for Radio Algeria International, and over to you, Jamal.
Mohammed Khatel, thank you so much for the details. You were live from the Pan Maritime Exhibition Hall. On the seventh and last day of the IATF, a large number of agreements and partnerships or contracts were signed between Algerian and foreign operators. The details on the agreements with Masoud Sharfi in this report.
5 partnership agreements were signed between the Sonarem Group and several African partners from Tunisia, Burkina Faso, Togo and Egypt for the export of mining materials. A partnership agreement was signed between the Central Laboratory of Public Works, LCBPT, JCA branch and the Guinean partner Groupe Balez, valued at $2 million. An agreement was signed between the Public Railway Construction Group and a partner from Conakry, Guinea. An agreement was signed between the Algerian Technical Studies Company SAETI and the Guinean Group Balenk, valued at $2 million. The food industry group Lapels signed trade exchange contracts with Uganda valued at $2 million. In the same context, several agreements were signed with the African partners aimed at boosting exports and strengthening regional cooperation. Starting with the electronics sector, Géant Electronics signed deal worth $11 million with companies from Niger, Tanzania and Zimbabwe, while Aris secured 2 contracts worth $10 million for shoe export to Tanzania and Zimbabwe. Other deals included a $10 million contract between Taysir and Tunisia's Cactus Trading Company for the export of urea. In pharmaceuticals, 3 Algerian firms, EG Med, Top Gloves and Lim Pansements, signed agreements with Burkina Faso's Nardo Distribution, totaling over $17 million in medical supplies. Meanwhile, the agri-logistics group Agrolo concluded one of the largest contracts of the fair with Uganda's Abarsi, valued at $200 million to develop food processing industries including cocoa transformation and coffee production.
The Intra-African Trade Fair 2025, while primarily an economic event, has also been marked by vibrant cultural activities showcasing the richness and diversity of the continent. More with our reporter from Safex, Asya Bekar.
Alongside trade and investment discussions, the fair hosted a series of cultural events highlighting the importance of art as a unifying force for Africans. Through music, exhibitions and performances, participants had the opportunity to discover each other's cultures, share collective histories and celebrate Africa's identity. Participants stressed the need for more fairs of this kind where business meets culture and where Africa can tell its story in its own voice. Mr. Tinwale Diwali, a member of the National Liberation Heritage Institute of South Africa, present at the fair, said art is one of the ways to bring African young peoples together.
Precisely, because the very same art has a huge role to play in social cohesion. So when we have arts themed in terms of freedom and who we are, will play a major role because it's part of edutainment, which is what young people want. Because if we just say we're going to sit down and talk, they won't come. But if we use arts and other means like, acts, then young people will then buy in easily and come and join us and understand where we come from.
Oussama Begar, an Algerian businessman living in Cote d'Ivoire, says the fair was an opportunity for him to introduce Algerian culture to his colleagues from Cote d'Ivoire.
When my colleagues discover Algerian country, they are so happy, so impressed. And this event is so important because they can meet contrasts between us to discover the culture, to discover the art, to discover the movie, everything.
As the curtain falls on the IATF 2025, the event leaves behind not only trade deals and economic partnerships, but also lasting cultural connections that strengthen Africa's unity and showcase the beauty of its diversity. Asya Bekar to Radio Algeria International, the exhibition hall Safex, Algiers.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and this is the English service with still our special coverage with the IATF 2025. The next program is about accessing finance. Accessing finance is the main challenge besetting small and medium micro enterprises and startups in the African continent. To delve into this thorny topic, our colleague Mohammed Khatel interviewed Elizabeth